So we'll take a quick moment and remind you about some of the basic terminology associated with transformations. First, what is a transformation? And if you recall, a transformation was a change in position, size, direction, or orientation of a figure. And it might actually be a few of those. You could put a few of those together and make it bigger and turn it. You can slide it around and make it smaller. You can slide it and turn it and flip it, all sorts of stuff. A big term for us here is preimage, and this is an object that is before a transformation. So we have a triangle sitting there, we would call that the preimage. And then if we've done something to it, then the second object, once it's taken care of, would be the image, and that's after the transformation. A great way to tell the difference between preimage and image, if you look down here at the bottom, here's some examples as you start getting into translation. The, the white figure would be the preimage, and then the arrows indicating something's happened to the gray image, right? So the preimage is white, and then the image is gray, the after. Another good way is you start to do some of this graphing stuff, is to look at the letters. A preimage, a lot of times, it'll be associated, the points associated with it will be labeled as just letters, A, R, um, Y. And then those same points, after something's been done to the preimage, all of a sudden they're going to have what's called, they're going to be prime. They'll have this little almost apostrophe with them, A prime, R prime, Y prime. So when you see those primes, that's an indication that that's the image. Something has happened to that object. So we'll look at a few of the transformations real quick. A translation, you can see here's a few examples of what a translation is, right? These two things are a translation. These are examples of what a translation is not. So when you look at it, both those, some of the descriptions we came up with, it looks like things are sliding over, right? Versus here, it looks like they turn. This one looks like it turns, and this one looks like it flips, right? And so keep in mind, a counterexample is something that is not an example. So with these two things, both look like they slide. Some other things that people mentioned yesterday, it doesn't look like the orientation really changes. No change in orientation for the examples. And then another thing pretty much everybody pointed out is it's the same size. It didn't get bigger or smaller. So the big fancy word that we talked about with same size was isometry or isometric, right? Those are kind of used interchangeably. And it seemed like that's a great word to throw around, especially when we start doing some of the definitions. So the definition of a translation, easiest definition we can come up with, is an isometric slide. So we're just going to slide a figure from one point to another, and it's not going to change the orientation. Right? So a reflection, we look here. What a lot of you guys were noticing yesterday, it's almost like there's a flip. Some of you guys mentioned the idea of a mirror. When you look at the face down here, the idea of symmetry popped up. There's some type of symmetry. Right? So these counterexamples, although this particular example does flip over that line, all of a sudden you see this gray lightning bolt. It got bigger. So that's one of our issues. Here again, it looks like we have a turn. And this would be some type of slide. So these are all not reflections. And so what we can pull from this is it looks like a reflection, it just flips it over, and similar to the translation, we have the same size. Or the kind of big buzzword for us is isometric. So this is just an isometric flip. And right? Remember that isometric just simply means that the size didn't change. Okay? And then we finally talked about rotations. And if you notice in all of these examples, it looks like the figure is turning. There's some type of turn. Here, all of a sudden, maybe the orientation is changing as you turn it. But the big issue with this particular example, although it does turn, it did get bigger as you turned it. And here, this is a flip. So that second example is a reflection. The first one, there is a turn to it, but we don't want it, right? This is not a correct rotation. So again, we want the same size figure. And so when we put those two things together, we can use our big buzzword, isometric. So this is an isometric